wife Kat's going to assist here. And I say I'm retired, but actually I'm under new management. See Kat for details.
So who's easier to work with? Your other job? But you retired
Well, I was self-employed, so it was.
There you go. Now
So,
you listen to somebody else.
quick bio, in 2009, I was at the Octagon Art Fair, and I saw a guy, Rob Wallace, he was turning bowls, and at that time I thought lathe work was just spindle work. And he told me about clubs, so I joined 3 clubs in Iowa and this one. And in February 2010, they had a beginning class here. And it was Dave Johnson, Randy Nagel, Sarge. Sarge was actually my first mentor here. So I actually learned to turn right back there. So I think it's important for public demos, and these clubs are important. And now I belong to those clubs plus Colorado, Michigan, Wisconsin, another one in Illinois, and one in North Carolina. So a lot of that was brought on with Zoom. So, but anyway, I tend not to call this a Christmas ornament because I turn these things year round. There's people that have them on their desks. I do different colors for different seasons and that. So you can call it what you want. So Chuck Dowler was the president of the Des Moines wood turners. He actually showed me the tree. You can grab that little cherry one.
What kind of wood do you use for those?
I just want to show it up here. So Chuck showed me, this was the basic tree he showed me, and he was demoing at the Ames wood turners. And back then it would cost $5 a year to join Ames. Those guys really cried when they upped it to 10. So Chuck did do some color, but he dipped them in a quart of dye. But that was the basic shape I learned from him. And you can kind of see I progressed through adding more color. You can pass around the very one on the end. And that's kind of what we're going to be turning tonight, is this one. So
What kind of wood? Do you use the same kind of wood pretty much for everything?
this is 8-quarter hard maple. So in the blanks, I wouldn't go under 4 inches. I usually run them around 5 inches. It depends what kind of base you put on them. I'm not going to talk a lot about safety. I think we're kind of all responsible for our own, but I had a friend last Wednesday. He was in a hurry. He turned around, run his 2 fingers down between the block and there, and he's got stitches all the way through there, and he might have to go in for surgery. So be careful.
I did the same thing sanding with my tabletop one.
Yeah.
Thank God that my finger was strong enough and the lathe was weak enough that it just stopped it. Until I
Oh,
took it over
jeez.
and shut it off.
Yeah.
I bruised my hand, but
Yeah, I know. It tore him up pretty bad. So being Tyler's here tonight, I'll use a skew for a while. That's enough skew. I used to use a skew for a lot of this tree, but when people would come over and I'd teach them how to turn it, ended up into a skew class instead of turning the tree. So.
What's the purpose of your green tape?
Well, first it identifies my stuff because I take a lot of classes, and the second just keeps my knuckles out of there. Normally I turn these on like shark jaws that stick out like that. And Steve Sinner, right off the bat, he told me to take all these sharp edges off, which I did. And Live Center, I'm using a Cindy Drozda point in there. It just gives me a little more room to work. You can actually make your own if you want, but Spindle roughing gouge. Everybody just spindle work only. People say, well, you won't bend that tang, but if you use this on face grain, you'd have 1/8 of a catch, and it'd probably be one you'd remember for a long time. So spindle work only. And when I took my first class, I stood back here like this. It took me 15 minutes to round my first blank. So I like to have 3 points of contact, 2 hands and your hip, and you want to try and move the tool with your body instead of standing back here and just pushing with your hands. Now I use a little template that I made up for these, and the top part is the length of my blank usually, and this is if I just get an odd sized piece of wood. I roughly want that diameter. It's not exacting, but you can kind of follow through over there. I didn't want to make up a sheet, so I just did the series so you could take pictures of that. But so the first one is I mark from the end of my blank 2.5 inches down. So now I want to make a taper. Don't move your tool rest with the lathe running, and then don't forget to start the lathe after you move it. So I want to taper from that line down. I'll use the tailstock as long as I can. And when you're cutting your wood, try and watch the horizon. So that's as long as I can use the tailstock there. You can hand one of these templates around. That was my original template. And I'm shooting for 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 diameter on the end. So I have notches on the template, 3/8, 3/4, 3/4, 3/4. If you see Kat jumping up and down, waving her arms, that means I probably skipped a step or something. So. I'm going to use this point tool to set those lines, and it's actually was made a scraper to cut for my Vicmark chuck jaws. And when I'm cutting, I'm only going to be cutting on one side. I'm not pushing it in, I'm pushing it towards the headstock. Uh, 3/8 spindle gouge. 40-degree bevel, somewhat of a Cindy Droza grind, a standard 3/8 detail gouge will work too fine. So. I'm just going to rough out the base and trunk. I use a bedan. I call it an English bedan. I use it this way. It's a bevel riding cut. A true French bedan are rectangular, and they actually run them this way. I'm not brave enough to do that. I want to leave it fairly thick because I'm going to texture it and color it. Shatter tool, I don't know if this is necessary. I just want to put some kind of texture on that very end piece. Cover your ears on this one.
What did you call that, what you just used?
This is a chatter tool here. You can put different points in there. I'll use it again later. So. This is a Sorby, a micro Sorby spiraling and texturing tool. It usually comes with this on there. The only time you use that is if you're cutting a specific spiral and you have to keep, it takes several passes to do that. And so you use this to keep it locked in at a certain angle. But with the freehand stuff, this just gets in the way. This? Not very exciting.
Oh my God, let me see that.
That one was actually done with one this size. And so this tool has a bevel on one side. I'm always cutting on the bevel side. And I'm going to cut on center. And I'm going to put it in roughly 1 o'clock. And this one, I want to slow it down to around 500 RPM or so. The bigger tool, you can run close to 1,000 maybe. I try not to go over that edge if I can help it. So that just gives you a little spiral texture. That leaves the wood a little rough, so we're just going to burnish it a little. I go ahead and color them now because sometimes if you cut down to the finished size on the trunk and that, it'll actually start wobbling. So, okay. Markers, Sharpie brush points, Tombos. I use the brush point. The reason I went to the Tombos is because I turned like at the state fair and that, and women would come up to you, I want salmon, I want teal. I mean, last week I had one wanted dusty rose. Can you tell me what dusty rose is? I mean, guys come up, I want green, I want red, you know, it's simple. So, but I've switched to these, but these use India ink and they're light fast. And so this is maximum light fastness, they call it. So. Yeah, we'll pass one around. We can pass them all around.
You said you like these better now that you have them.
Well, these, I mean, if somebody left this sit out in the sun all the time, these do pretty good, but I think they would think these are like alcohol and that. So, but I actually like the Tombow tip better. It has a lot finer brush tip. So we'll pass these around and you can get an idea.
You buy those ones there in a set, or do you have to buy them individually?
These were individual colors. If you watch, they do go on sale every now and then. I mean, the Tombows, like, don't buy them from Craft Supply. They're terrible expensive, but Blick Art, they have sales on them, good prices.
They know it's well and good.
Kat picked these colors. You can't tell she likes purple, so. And you don't have to color them this way. I mean, you can do whatever you like for color, so. This is in the way.
You said that's an ink?
This is India. They're India ink, yes. I mean, I use 2 to 3 colors. I like 3 colors, but it just let people kind of pick what they like. And
The fun part is when they say what color it's always what do you say?
Obviously, you let your wife pick the color,
Yes.
right?
well, I mean, at the fairs and that, people come up and pick the colors they want and that, so that's kind of fun. And sometimes they pick out the craziest colors, and sometimes it really doesn't look too bad.
That people he lets it.
That's why you're still married.
Yeah, I've been married for 46 years, so something's going right.
Diamonds are girls'
I can't complain. She bought me a robust lathe last year. Surprised me with a robust. It's like, so. This was easier when I was younger and a lot steadier too. And my eyesight was better. You were talking about weed pots earlier at the state fair 2 years ago. I was turning and this couple came up, looked like hippies. And she's looking, and she goes, "There's no lid to hold the stuff in." And I go, "Different kind of weed." All right. This is carnauba wax, like in your Beal system. I cut the cake in like 3 pieces, and this is what happens when you drop the piece on the floor. You get lots of little pieces. So.
That don't stick down in, you don't see that down in your,
Nope. It just gives it just a little bit of sheen, not a lot. Kind of sets the colors. I don't know. And next, for the top, I'm going to use a fish hook, and you cut the hook part off. And then when you cut it off with side cutters, it makes a chisel point, so it drills really easy. This is actually my favorite part. And then I put like a little, this is the fish hook that's been cut off. And I use a little glass bead I get at Hobby Lobby. And it drills, and then I end up just driving the last little bit. All tools are hammers, right? And the only thing is you don't want to drive too far because I've busted a lot of beads, just like I did that one. I did that on purpose. And you never
so
want.
that's just a friction fit.
Yeah.
What's that?
You never want to drop these in the shavings either. You don't even look for them.
The little guy, I buy eyelets or whatever that are threaded, and I drill my top and then put that in to put a hook for hanging it on the tree. That's a better idea, 'cause you don't have to do that.
Now I'm going to go ahead and shape the base trunk. The Badan's just a little bit too aggressive in there when it gets thin, so I switch to just a narrower parting tool. And clean up the base. Now in chatter tools, when I'm running the face of something, I usually run from the center down to 730. And I'll do the same thing on this base here. This is a D-way beading tool. I'm just using it to cut lines, but it keeps my spacing even. You can cut a full bead if you wanted. But you can put any kind of base. You can see the earlier ones, I just put small bases on. Now I'm going to use the same texturing tool, but I'm just going to use it straight on. I'm trying kind of for like a basket look, but I don't know if it really is. Okay, I told you she'd remind me. She says I'm ugly enough without getting hit in the face anymore.
I usually wear flip-flops when I'm training.
In the bottoms, you want a little bit of undercut on them. And you can burn these little lines if you want, but I ruined my burning wire the other day, so. This is actually where I ruin more of them is when I part them off. If your parting tool tips to the side, it's pretty exciting. So, I don't know if you can tell, this one is sharpened at an angle. With a regular parting tool, when I go in and undercut, I end up with a big point sticking out. So this way I can get more of that cut off.
For me, thank you.
Yes, there you go. So I don't know if there's any questions. It was kind of hurried. And when I do have scrap left over, I put a dowel in it, and then I can make a top out of that. So. And you can do all sorts of decorations on them, but I needed something you can just part off at a fair and that. Like there's some of these I've gotten crazy with carving and texturing and that, and you can put all sorts of stuff on them.
Do you ever have a problem with the screw coming out of your sword bead tool?
Hmm?
With the screw coming out of the sword bead tool? I go to use mine and it keeps, the screw keeps.
Oh, no, I've never had it come out. No. No, I've never had it come out.
Good, tell them how many trees you
Do you oil it?
No.
It needs to be oiled.
There you go.
Okay, so how'd you do
That was done with a micromotor and a wood burner, and then I painted it.
So you kind of just Dremel
Yep.
the
And then go in there with a wood burner and do a little deeper lines. But you can use cut burrs, there's puff paint, there's all kinds of ways you can decorate them, but it takes so long that you just can't do it at a fair. You
Right.
want something you can just part off.
I would look at this and I wouldn't even think that was a piece of wood.
Yeah. So,
Tell how many trees you had to make before this. Tell how many trees you made before. The trees, all the trees you
oh,
made. Yeah.
you got a whole list.
Yeah, I had a whole list like this.
Every one of her friends this year is getting a tree.
Yeah.
And every day the list got longer. So, I'm sorry, that was, yeah. I'm gonna make crappy trees, then they won't want them.
You have grandkids?
No,
No? Do you have kids?
no.
So that's what I've done is make like a different ornament every year
Okay,
so that they have like their 1-year-old, 2, 3, and that way when they move out, they got 18 usually, around
Yeah.
17, 18 Christmas ornaments to put on their tree when they finally get their own.
yeah, my family complains I don't give them enough.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I stopped at 8. I figured I'd stop at 18.
So that was a little hurried, but give you the idea anyway. Thank you, thank you.